MSPs, summer is here, and so are vacation schedules, staffing gaps, and the challenge of keeping service levels high with fewer hands on deck. Join MSP industry thought leader Eric Simpson and Kaseya's Dan Tomaszewski for a live discussion on how successful MSPs are leveraging AI and automation to streamline operations, reduce manual work, and support more clients without continuously adding headcount. You'll discover practical use cases for AI-powered service desks, ticket triage, security operations, and faster issue resolution that can help your team work smarter while maintaining an exceptional client experience. Save your seat today at https://bit.ly/AI MSP webinar. That's https://bit.ly/AI MSP webinar. And learn how to run lean, stay profitable, and scale support this summer. And now, on to the show. And 3, 2, 1, blast off. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the MSP Chat Podcast, your weekly visit with two talking heads talking with you about the services, strategies, and success tips you need to make it big and manage services. My name is Rich Freeman. I'm one of your co-hosts on this show. I'm also chief analyst at Channel Master, the organization responsible for this fine podcast. I am joined virtually, side by side, by our CEO and chief strategist. His name is Eric Simpson. Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Rich. I'm not traveling on the road like you are right now. We are in two different parts of the country. Please share.
You know, which has to be confusing to people in our video audience right now because our backdrop is identical. It looks like the same office. You'd never know that I'm coming to you folks from a hotel room in Nashville, Tennessee, where I'm attending the Rewst Flow event. Rewst is doing their annual partner conference here in Nashville, and I'm attending the show and covering it for my blog, Channelholic.
Awesome. And I know some news that you'll be covering comes at us straight from the show as you're gathering it, in real life.
That is exactly right. And in addition to that, earlier today, I recorded an interview that you will hear later in this episode with Charlie Tomeo, the chief revenue officer at Rewst, in which we'll be getting into some of this. But yeah, let's dive right into the story of the week, which is coming to you hot off the virtual presses here at Rewst Flow. The big news that Rewst announced at this show is an AI-powered I'm tempted to call it automation tool. So Rewst, as I'm sure the vast majority of MSPs in our audience know, is an RPA tool. Basically, it is a very popular tool for MSPs to build and execute automations within their business. For years, basically, as long as that product has existed, it's been a really powerful tool in the hands of builders, people who know how to build automations and know how to use the tool. And that's been a limitation for it. And for Rewst partners as well, is finding those people who really know the ins and outs of the tool and know how to put it to work. Aaron Chernin, the CEO of the company, was on stage here this morning, and he said, depending on whose numbers you believe, there are something like 80,000, maybe 90,000 MSPs out there, and maybe 1,000 people who really have the skills to use Rewst to the best of its abilities. That will be changing very, very soon. Just in a matter of days, actually, Rewst will be rolling out a new version of the product that allows more or less anyone, my words, not theirs, to vibe code an automation. You're really not going to have to be a builder anymore. You're just going to have to, in natural language, kind of tell the tool, here's what I'm trying to accomplish, and it will go build that for you. And this will have all sorts of different implications for MSPs, obviously. On the one hand, just as a starting point, it's going to democratize automation within an MSP. So it's not even just that. You're going to go beyond that one builder you have in the organization and allow any engineer in the organization to build an agent. Theoretically, you're going to be able to allow anybody in the organization to build automations. I was just talking right before this recording session with an MSP here, and he is already looking forward to giving this tool to his HR person, so that they can build training automations and this. You're not going to need any skill, knowledge of scripting or anything that Rewst does, you're just going to know I've got a workflow that I want to build or automate. You're going to be able to do that with the tool. So internally, this is going to sort of unlock access to the tool and let a lot of people benefit from it. Rewst has been talking for a good year and a half now as well, though, about what they call automation as a service. So Rewst was originally designed as an internal facing tool for MSPs to automate themselves. Yeah, as of the last 18 months or so, it's also been a tool that MSPs can use as the foundation for a service that they bring to their customers to help the customers automate their workflow. And obviously, this is going to make delivering that service much, much easier for MSPs as well. You're not going to need to have a builder on the team who can turn that blueprint that maybe a salesperson put together with help from a customer. Here's something we want to do. You hand that over to the engineer, the builder, to kind of bring that to reality. More or less anyone, maybe this might be a little bit of a push, but maybe that salesperson can go ahead and create that automation for the end user. And so that's going to accelerate delivery of automations to customers. It's going to make it easier for many, many more MSPs to add automation as a service to their tool set. And all of this, Eric, is within the sort of near to medium time frame here. The tool I'm describing becomes available at the end of June. But there were hints, there was some discussion on stage during the general session today about where this is going next. And right now, what Rewst is rolling out is an upgrade, a new version of their platform, really, in which an agent is empowering a human on the MSP side. But they're already looking forward to the day when more and more of the work that an MSP does is actually done for them by agents. And so they're already kind of looking forward to the day when Rewst's agent is empowering the MSP's agent. And it's all a sort of agent to agent interaction. I won't get into the detail, not because any of it's classified, but just in the interest of moving on, I won't get into the details about what they said and the hints they dropped about that. But it was kind of interesting to me because it got me sort of thinking about the degree to which vendors beyond Rewst are really going to have to look forward to the day in which they are selling whatever it is that they make to agents, essentially. That and it's not, that we're looking past service desk automation. You think about anything that an MSP does that an agent will be doing for them. It's really going to be the agent and the agent on either end, the vendor end and the MSP interacting. And that's going to change how vendors design software. It's going to change how they sell and market, because in some cases, it's going to be the agent picking its tool. Essentially, the agent will be the customer and will be deciding what to buy. Longer term, interesting issue that we're going to see play out over the course of the next 18 months, say, but some really interesting stuff for Rewst partners coming much, much sooner than that.
Wow, two thoughts come to mind immediately, Rich. The first is, um, the opportunity, and I'm glad you shared it, for MSPs to take this solution and then deliver AI first or AI forward services to their customers. That's always how, MSPs are thinking. Well, is it good? Is it good for me and my team? Great, that helps us. But how can I monetize that with my customers? And then maybe a sub thought under that one is, this also uh, allows folks that aren't MSPs, as we've talked about on the program before, that are building very deliberate, just AI workflow automation and agents and things like that, to end customers of SMBs, mid market, and enterprise folks as well. So, has there been any conversation about that, or have you heard any talk about the potential competition of some of these folks that are just basically focusing on helping SMB customers leverage AI, for themselves, regardless of who's delivering the technology or security services?
So the interesting thing, and you tell me if I'm addressing the issue that you have in your mind, but I mean, one of the things that I have been talking to Rewst about, and folks will hear some of this come up in the interview with Charlie Tomeo a little bit later in the episode. You go back in time just a little bit, and in my writing, I was often using this term hyperautomation, and hyperautomation referred to the combination of RPA and AI. And all anyone's talking about now is the AI piece of that. And so, I've been sort of interested in what is the future of the RPA side of that, and part of the vision at Rewst basically is that there will always be agentic AI is never going to make RPA unnecessary, no matter how smart it gets, because what RPA does is empower the MSP on behalf of their customer, essentially, to define what those agents do, what they can do, what they can do, can't do, how they do it. Essentially, RPA becomes almost a set of guardrails. It's not a security tool, so that's not a precise way of putting it. But it defines, it sets limits, it provides a sort of training set essentially for the agents that will be doing more and more of the work for. So these AI and RPA, the AI tools you're referring to, I think, and Roost, they're from a Roost point of view, they're more complementary basically than things that might replace one another.
Got it. Got it. Got it. And I guess, just another funny thought that I had is, we've heard the term feel the burn. And I would just insert like feel the token burn as more and more AI agents become involved in everything that we do, whether we're MSPs or not, whether we're, consumers. I mean, there's layers and layers and layers of orchestration now that's happening. And, it's very interesting to figure out, what does that hierarchy look like, right? Remember the first Tron movie, Rich? I'm sure you do. And there was the master control program, the MCP. Like what is the ultimate master agent, right? That lives on top of everything so that we as human beings don't have to worry about anything anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do remember the original Tron well. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're going to come back to the feel the burn concept here. I'm going to put a pin in that because there's something that comes up in the Charlie Tomeo interview that touches on that. And so at the end of the show, we'll talk about that a little bit more. But you're exactly right to bring that to mind in terms of how it plays into this. So, like I've been saying, there are sort of longer term and shorter term implications to what Roost was announcing here at the show. Timing, shorter term versus longer term, when you act on something has a little bit to do with your tip of the week this week, Eric.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you. Yes, and it's a common topic that we revisit from different perspectives now and again on the podcasts, and this is all about preventing client churn. We know that MSPs now are really a lot more mature in how they're looking at their business operations and the equity value of their organizations, not by any means being impacted by all of the M&A activity that's going on in the channel for the last 2 years, even since COVID. I mean, this I'm joking, right? I mean, every MSP that I speak with is getting hammered by folks wanting to, hey, are you interested in selling your business? Are you just and I'm getting those emails, Rich, and I haven't been an MSP for years, right? But I'm on every list, on the planet, I think, which is good. It keeps me in tune with what's happening out there and what people are saying. But the one of the drivers of valuation, something that can absolutely impact a multiple or an offer, uh, is churn, and not only employee churn, staff churn from an MSP, but customer churn. And we're talking about the net revenue retention KPI or a metric, right? So the more that MSPs can hang on to existing revenue, not churn out customers, for anything that they can control. Obviously, we know that customers will get acquired and MSPs will lose that relationship because the large organization has their own internal IT or has their own preferred provider. It's hard to guard against that. But for the things that we can control, And for the things that we want to measure within our clients' relationships are kind of that customer sentiment, that you know that feel good. How are we doing? Trying to get these surveys done. And so this is really about getting ahead of any surprises, right? The last thing that we want to know is a client wants to leave, and ultimately when we find out is when they start asking for their passwords and their network diagrams and things like that, right? Ask me how I know, Rich. uh so here's three things that partners can do today to try to get in front of this and try to read the tea leaves, and not only the tea leaves but get real data so that they are essentially including this as a metric in their business operations, like customer sentiment, and the ones that are at risk. So first thing is identify kind of your top five most important clients. They hopefully they're strategic, but we've all had clients that are not very strategic, but they affect a large portion of our revenue, right? So there's also that risk of revenue being with too few clients, or maybe one big client is represents 20% of your revenue. That's a risk. Well, identify who those clients are and make sure that you're speaking with them recently and often about their business goals, not just about support issues. We talk a lot on the program, Rich, about having those boardroom conversations rather than server room conversations. Don't sell technology outcomes, sell business outcomes. Moving toward this AI opportunity and things like that deliver more value for your existing clients. So make sure that you're having conversations with these clients. Sometimes MSPs think, oh, no news is good news. I haven't heard from clients, so they must be happy. That is a mistake. That is a mistake. Do not assume that silence means satisfaction. It can mean the opposite, actually. They could be out there looking for your replacement without you even knowing it. Number two, ask one difficult question. Now, this one takes a little bit of humility, Rich, to ask a customer and say, hey, is there anything we're not doing as well as we could be? Nobody wants, that report card. Nobody wants to get the bad news. But if we're asking that question repeatedly and consistently during QBRs, during client meetings, taking clients to lunch, whatever it is, we want to get that feedback and we want them to be candid. And we want them to know that we are taking note of that and we will put a plan together to address it. Again, this is that confidence booster where, we wish that every one of our clients wants as well for us and our business as we want for them. And the only way to know that is to ask them directly and to build that stronger relationship. And then act on that feedback, that last thing. So if you're meeting with your clients regularly and you're asking for that input, the next time you meet with them, let them know what you've done about it and demonstrate that to them so they feel like, oh, we can have an open conversation. It goes both ways. And we really want to build a strategic relationship where the client is as concerned with our well being and growth as we are for them. And sometimes, Rich, in building our client relationships, we might have two or three clients that they don't even care enough about their own business for them to even care about our business. So that's like the first thing is like, don't expect too much. That's why I say start with your strategic clients and work your way through your A and B clients. And maybe you'll have a few C customers in there that you want to have these relationships with as well. But you want to make sure that you're doing everything possible that you can so that they don't churn out because of you not listening or asking these questions or paying attention to what their real needs are and being more strategically valuable to them moving forward.
Surprises in life can be a lot of fun, Eric. By and large, you never really want to be surprised with your end users because most of those surprises are going to be bad. It's going to be the news that they've replaced you with somebody else. And so, yeah, this is the logic behind staying in regular contact with the customer. You really never want to be surprised in an unpleasant way by some problem between you and the client, some problem in the relationship that you are not aware of. And the question that you were talking about there as potentially awkward and something people don't want to ask. I can't underscore enough how smart that is to do. At And this goes, you don't even have to be an MSP to benefit from this advice. Whatever it is you do, if there's a service element to it, asking the customer on a regular basis, how are we doing and how can we do it better, is just a really smart thing to do. And even if the answer is doing great and I can't think of anything you could be doing better, people appreciate that you ask the question, that you want to know, that their satisfaction matters to you. Last thing I'll point out, well, two related things. So first of all, you were talking about how 100% of the MSPs in our audience are getting inquiries from potential acquirers and private equity firms and such. That phenomenon is so huge, Eric, that I'm getting those inquiries, and I'm not an MSP. You haven't been an MSP in decades. I've never been an MSP, but my name shows up on registration lists for events like this when I'm attending right now. So people assume I'm an MSP, and without even looking to see if I've got a website or something, they send me an email. We want to buy your business, which is kind of hilarious to me. So that's where that's going. And then I'm thinking of an article I wrote or published on Channelholic just a few days ago, as we're having this conversation right now, about Treeline, the Andreessen Horowitz backed MSP we've talked about before. They've begun doing some acquisitions of their own, and they confirmed something we've talked about before on the show, and something that you were kind of getting at a little bit earlier. First of all, they look closely at churn, at net revenue retention, which is something you said you've seen with your customers a lot right now. So confirmation from a very sophisticated potential acquirer, that matters a lot to them. Another thing that matters to them, though, is they want to know that you as an MSP are in that AI conversation with the end user. Not necessarily that you've got super sophisticated workflow transformation services in market right now, but that you're having that conversation on some level with the end user, because they know at Treeline, and this is true of other acquirers, if you're not having that conversation, somebody else is, another MSP, an AI consultant. You risk winding up just a little bit more than a help desk, which is the ultimate commodity, obviously. So something else to think about in terms of keeping the customer satisfied. Ask them if they're satisfied, but also talk to them about what they want. Increasingly, that's AI, and make sure you're acting on that.
Absolutely. And one last thought that I'll tag on. I think a lot of MSPs are used to these automated surveys, and like the little give me a smiley face or a sad face when I close this ticket, or net promoter scores, these online or email type of things. This is different. This is you asking the question directly. It hits differently. It's more direct. It's more personal. Like you're asking someone, because at the end of the day, end users and business leaders are just like us. If I get 3 or 4 survey requests a week, I'm going to stop responding to them, because you're not the only person sending these to these business owners and to their end users. We get surveys from every place we shop at and all this. And so after a while, folks just become desensitized to it. So you've got to really dig in and build that personal relationship. A personal relationship cannot be created digitally, right?
100%. Couldn't agree more with that. Well, let's talk a little bit more about what Rewst has been announcing here at the show, but this time let's do it with somebody from Rewst. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back on the other side, I will be sitting down with Charlie Tomeo. He's the Chief Revenue Officer at Rewst. We're going to talk a little bit about the news here at the show, automation as a service. We'll get that perspective from inside Rewst. All that's coming your way in just a moment, so stick around. And welcome back to part 2 of this episode of the MSP Chat Podcast, coming to you live from Rewst Flow 2026 in Nashville, Tennessee, where I'm very pleased to be joined by the Chief Revenue Officer of Rewst. His name is Charlie Tomeo. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. Good to see you, and I thank you for taking some time out of a very busy, very crowded show. Great turnout here. As our introductions imply, we've known each other for a while, but
Yeah.
for the benefit of anyone in the audience who is not familiar with you and somehow or another isn't familiar with Rewst, just give them the 101 on Charlie Tomeo and Rewst.
Yeah, Charlie Tomeo. I've been with Rewst as the CRO for 3.5 years now. And, before that, worked at other MSP-centric companies, Axient, Weber, for a number of years. So I've been around the community for quite a bit. We've seen some great growth in Rewst, and, now we're looking to take it to the next level.
So we're talking here like an hour and a half after the general session in the morning where Aaron and others were making the big announcements from the show. If I'm still digesting because it's only been an hour and a half, but if I was to try to summarize what you guys are doing in this big new release of the product that you unveiled here, it's that you're essentially trying to democratize automation. That the tool was providing a lot of power to MSPs before. There was a limited set of people who had the skills to capitalize on that power. And what you're looking to do now is basically let everybody who has an idea for an automation build it. So let's just start there. Is my summarization for what you're hoping to accomplish accurate?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely accurate. I think, if you looked at some of the speech, you talked about all the things that we've done, right? Just as vendors that focus on spaces, we, look at personas and, we try to focus on like who's the best fit based on that data that we look at. And what we did find at Rewst that I haven't really seen anywhere else that I've worked is that the persona wasn't the normal, size of the company, number of employees, number of revenue. Those are the things, these are the markers that we look at, or even the tech stack that they're using. What we found is that everybody of every size wants to automate. So the real difference was that if you had a builder, somebody on the tech side that was real pro automation that wanted to leverage it, and you had an owner that was aligned, those are the guys that are successful. So, I think Aaron even talked about, the people that use Rewst the most aren't the people that doesn't guarantee that it's 100 million revenue MSP. It could be the guy that has no choice, that's just starting out, that's maybe $1 million a year. So he's building his business and realizing that if I don't automate, I don't grow. So I can't just add headcount.
So the idea is going forward, because agentic AI on the back end is going to be kind of doing the actual coding, essentially vibe coding automations for MSPs. Paint a picture for me. Talk to me about the unlock. Once that's out there, and any MSP can use a tool like Rewst, specifically Rewst, and anyone in that MSP can use. What impact does that have on an MSP and the way they operate and their ability to improve efficiency and productivity and growth, et cetera?
Yeah, I think it's, one of the big challenges that most people start out with, and we even tell you, make your MSP efficient. If you're going to use automation, let's see how you can make some efficiencies there, basically saving time, saving money, not focus on the mundane. And I think a lot of people get stuck there. The people that even today they're using it well will go and look at their HR department, their finance department, seeing like what are they doing repetitively. So I think what it does now is instead of, I think anybody that's in tech has gone through this to some extent, is the people that really know the problems they're looking to solve aren't the technical people all the time. Right. So they're the other people, right, that are involved, like even an MSP, and maybe the owner may be more connected if they're actually meeting with their customers, what their problems are, than maybe the tech does. So now it gives you the ability to, put some wrapper and some guardrails around it, but give them the ability to go in and talk about like, here's a problem I'm looking to solve, and how could you help me solve it? The other thing that it's going to do is give you the ability to go in and unearth what things that you should probably be looking at to fix. So that's a big change from where we've been, because a lot of MSPs buy the product and they're like, what should I automate it? So they really want to do it. And most of them kind of will get over the hurdle, will help them get over the hurdle. But now the fact that you have more than just those techies trying to figure it out, you have the rest of the business units looking at it.
And so, and there's so much focus right now in the industry on MSP productivity and all of these like service desk automation tools that are specifically designed to help that part of the MSP's business be more productive and get more done. You're kind of talking about every division, every part
That's right.
of the business, the sales, the marketing people, anyone who could potentially automate a workflow, get more done. They're now going to have that ability on their own, essentially.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, here you talk about some of these other, automation now, even from 3.5 years ago, there's a lot more vendors doing it, doing components of it. Even the bigger guys are doing it. I was at Kaseya Connect last week, and guys stopped by. He said, like, I need to understand what's the difference. Like, I'm really confused. I just saw like 3 or 4 different vendors, and he's, so we walked through kind of some of the things you can do. And he goes, so let me get this straight. So I could either probably buy 3 of those tools and do a component of it, or I could do all my automation using a platform like you guys have. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, that's a better story for me. He said, I just can't see like trying to like tack on a little bit just to get there. Like, I need something that's going to get me mostly the way there.
You guys now have an agent that is working on behalf of people at an MSP and helping them automate. Some of what you guys talked about on stage this morning, though, felt like you are anticipating and building toward a future in which your agent is working with the MSP's agents, that at some point down the road, as tools like these service desk automation tools and others really become widespread and widely used and more agentic and sophisticated, that automation is going to be an agent to agent kind of process. Is that in fact sort of the vision?
Yeah, that is definitely the vision. And I think part of it is recognizing, we're pretty blessed to have Aaron as a very, forward-thinking guy. Again, somebody that not just can build the tech, but does understand what the problems that we're looking to solve. And so, we believe we wanted to put ourselves in a position that we could help the MSPs on their journey to the next thing they're going to be. And so having these tools, having these abilities, even just this, like you said, we just talked about this an hour and a half ago, and a bunch of people stopped by the booth, and, people that even said, hey, listen, I tried using Rewst. We didn't put enough into it, but like, I want to get back in. Like, this is going to help me change. And it's going to give them more comfort of like, what does the future really look like?
One of the interesting things that, one of the sort of interesting implications of what you guys were talking about. So, we were talking off the air before this interview about Rewst is a very user-focused company, community-focused company. Users drive a lot of the content at this event. That community and that user base over time is going to expand to encompass agents. Yeah. And there was some talk on stage about, building the tools for that user base. And Aaron was kind of talking about how agents are going to choose Rewst because Rewst is going to make their job easier. To what extent are you already trying to anticipate what makes agents happy, what you have to do to make an MSP friendly tool agent friendly as well?
Yeah, we're already working on that, and where it will, we got to the point now where it'll recommend if we did something just plainly with a tool like, let's say, Claude Code, and it'll recommend that it's easier to do it with using something like Rewst because it knows that it's hooked into there. But ultimately, that's one component. The other component is putting some structure around and somewhat of a wrapper around us now. All of a sudden, MSPs setting up MCP servers for their customers, right? Making sure that there are some controls. The fact that you'll be able to have auditing to see what these people are doing, how they're doing it. I think it'll take some of the scariness out of it for the customers. And also it puts the MSP in ability where they're still very valuable in what they're providing. Because we all know that, even after COVID, a bunch of these customers bought a bunch of tools that were SaaS-based tools, unbeknownst to the MSP. And they're probably getting 10% of the value of those things. So I think it just puts the MSP in a similar position that they've always been, is being that trusted advisor and be able to provide value as things are changing.
And it's interesting because now that shadow IT phenomenon you were talking about, after COVID has become shadow AI. And it's the same story, basically. A bunch of stuff comes inside the business that the MSP doesn't know about. It occurred to me within the last 2-3 weeks that there was a time not that long ago where the term hyperautomation showed up in my writing fairly regularly. And hyperautomation basically was RPA and AI, like collectively they were hyperautomation. I don't use that term anymore. I don't hear other people use it. All the talk now obviously is about AI. And there was some content on this on stage before. Help the folks in the audience pick apart what RPA is valuable for and versus what AI does, and how those two are maybe better together for the MSP.
Yeah, it's really just putting the structure out, and that's why, like everyone, I've had people say to me, "Oh, so you an AI company now?" We're not an AI company. We're AI enabled, AI native, like being able to leverage that to make things easier to do, but still having that framework built out so that you have, some processes around it, you have controls, you have auditing ability. If you look at some of what we deal with AI today, I think is very similar that every MSP is comfortable with, where they built scripts, right? Scripts were big. Anybody that's been doing this for a hot minute knows they were one of the big, basically forces of change for RMMs and things like that, by being able to make them better, be able to go, given that ability. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing now, is just like, we need to put some structure around what we're doing with some of the AI in-house. Also, having the ability that if your best tech quits, it's all in the system, right? You're able to go in there, that things are reproducible, how they work. So it's still, there's still a happy balance between the two of them. But I would just say, for us, it's really supercharging your automation and making anyone can automate, especially with AI.
So the structure point is really interesting. So you can bring an AI tool in as an MSP to automate some function that you
Absolutely.
perform for your customers. And the better together piece is RPA is going to put some structure or some guardrails essentially around what that AI can do and how it does it. You're effectively training it and tutoring it on how to serve the customer.
Yeah, and if you think about it, and I think even Gary Pico was mentioning it, where he said, somebody called up and said, AI me. No, but they don't really know, right? They're still trying to figure out what that means, but they'll have some level of comfort. But the fact that you can actually make it a very pointed solution that they're going to, get extreme value out of, it's great. We looked at that with, somebody in our early access is testing out that for a title company. So the fact that they have so many, places to go for data to figure out, like, is that a clean title? Are there any issues, things like that? Now you've kind of put it in one bucket and you've taken all of the potential human error out of it. So it's just things like that that are going to get better. Even Aaron's demo was, having that guy be able to get access to all of the financial data just by typing it in is huge. I mean, we all, data is key, right? But bad data is terrible, right? So it just put yourselves in a position where You have integrity in the data that you have. You also have stuff at your fingertips.
And that role basically that RPA plays now will play, it plays now with technicians, it'll play with agents going forward. That's a long-term role. One of the things I was going to ask about is, over time, as AI gets more capable, does it start to do more of what RPA is doing now? But there's always going to be a need for structure and process and defining your way of doing things at an MSP. And it sounds like you guys believe, therefore, there will always be a role for a tool that tells the AI what to do effectively and how best to do it.
Yeah, I think like everything else, we have to adapt as we move forward. So we're going to adapt the platform to make sure that we're getting the most out of it and that we're still providing the value that they're looking for. But it does put you in a position where it's not the old days of inconsistencies in what the actual outcome looks like. Aaron used an example of, you're actually spending less on AI if you're leveraging our platform, right? So that's another big thing that, as we know, I think we're all hoping that we get to a tipping point where everyone's using it so much that the prices go down, but it still could become a problem, right? If all of a sudden, the one thing that MSPs do not like, and I'm sure their customers don't like, is surprise bills. I use the best example I use is when we all had cell phones based on usage. You got that surprise bill once, and then you never did it again. So we want to make sure we're putting people in a position where they could be successful, leveraging AI for the automations, but also feel comfortable that they have some guardrails around not getting a bill for 10 grand that they didn't know they were getting, right? So it's just kind of a mixture of both, and being able to manage it, having the granular auditing to come in, not just from a security standpoint, but also just from, hey, what is somebody doing? How are they doing it? Do they realize what they're costing us when they're doing it? Just having those safeguards in place, I think, going to be big.
When Rewst first came out, and for the first couple of years it was available to MSPs, it was an MSP only facing tool. That was a tool for MSPs to use internally. I remember meeting with Aaron about a year and a half ago, I think it was, when you guys first started opening the door to the MSP, using the tool that they were using internally with their customers, helping their customers automate as well. You guys refer to that as automation as a service.
Yes.
This is a service, a product that MSPs can and you believe should be selling to their customers. So define automation as a service. What is that opportunity for MSPs?
So it's definitely revenue driven, right? But they're going in and taking what they learned and trying to solve their internal problems to figure out how do they get to understand what that actual customer's problem is that they could make more efficient, they could put predictability around. Some of it, believe it or not, is just as basic as you can imagine, where people are still updating spreadsheets on important data that, whether it's their board looks like, their owner looks at. And as we know, that's clumsy, right? It's pretty clumsy. It's not as on demand as it really needs to be. Whereas if you can automate that, and you could leverage something like, an agent, we could pull that data on demand. So if that CEO, CFO wants information, bam, they're just clicking on and getting it. So those are some of the things that we're seeing. I do think it's also some efficiencies around the tools that they're self-managing. I think that's the other component. But bottom line is it makes them stickier. So now I provided even more value than just, hey, this is my IT team, right? So I know they've shown great value around security. That was a big lift for them. Now I think this is just the next thing. And we see about 17-ish% of our partners are already doing that. They've already figured it out. To Gary Pica's point, they have to figure more about not making it as bespoke as every account's the same thing, but if they could find ways to go in and clean things up. And I think ultimately they as they're looking at, what I'm seeing is when they see all these tools they're paying for, and they're able to now build an automation as a service, and they just got rid of 3 tools that they, you know, somebody probably put on their credit card during COVID. There's easy value there.
The efficiencies that you were kind of alluding to there, when that automation as a service capability in the platform first became available, my recollection is you could use, as an MSP, you could use Rewst to automate QuickBooks workflows. There were like 2 or 3 other tools that you guys started with. It sounds, so I guess first question would just be, what does the tool set that you can automate look like now? But the follow-up question basically is, it sounds like you've gone beyond helping the end user automate tools that they've deployed to automating in a much broader, potentially more strategic sense.
Yeah, and I think that part of that is a couple of things. We had probably since the last time we talked, we've given the ability for basically any tool that has an API, they could build out an integration. So it's fairly easy for them to do, basically taking Swagger docs, importing them, and now all of a sudden they have an automation to a tool that we may not have focused on. And there's a good chance it may not even be MSP focused, right? So we've expanded out on that. We've also expanded out with Rewst, which about 3 months ago, we gave them the ability to start building in native language. So now we are having a lot of these practitioners that are internal to the MSP that do work more directly with their customers, solving they're understanding the problem, and now they're able to solve it, literally just by asking Rewst to build it for them.
Talk a little bit about maybe some specific examples. We've touched here and there on how maybe the CFO, but that 17-ish% of partners who are doing automation as a service, are you seeing any scenarios, any use cases? Maybe it could be specific to one MSP, or it could be an emerging pattern. What are people actually doing for their customers that's working?
So one of the ones that's big, everyone's afraid to talk to, is HR. But being able to actually enforce HR policies at times, or putting themselves in a position to audit things that are HR related, whether that's people going through. And what happens is there are tools that could do some of these things, but again, that's another layer of something that they could do. But being able to do that is big. Also enhancing what their form systems look like, having internal forms for them for things that they need to do that are just manual today. So even something like a new user coming on board, being able to go in and kind of filling out all that information in advance will help them. So we're seeing things like that. And then some of the stuff is vertical specific, whether it's a law firm, anything that they need, it's actually extra help to make sure they're compliant. They're able to go in and do things like that.
And so what MSPs always want, obviously, is you come in, you do the project, you build the automation, you get paid for that, and then it becomes a recurring revenue source. Right. How are you seeing MSPs, do both of those essentially?
Yeah, so they're I still see some doing more of that old project work and building something, but for the most part, when they're building out things, especially on the reporting side, they're making it so that they're going to constantly update that, they're going to manage it, and they're able to get recurring revenue out of it, because they basically just correlate how long it's taking for them to do that manually today, and they do the math. And in some cases, what we've had is they're going in and they're making these efficiencies and making their experience. So same problem an MSP has, a lot of times their customers have. So if there's somebody that's billing out every month, being able to make sure that, especially some of them that have more of that service-based model, is making sure that those things are accurate. The last thing that you want to do, like when one partner that 50% of their invoices that they went out were wrong, and they had 2 people that were doing it every month manually. we were able to come in and actually make that so that it was more of a 5.9 success rate. So the MSP came in, did that, and they wound up getting rid of one of those people because they didn't need to anymore. And they cut down on the complaints.
You were talking before about how the tool for some period of time has had the ability to integrate with more or less anything the end user is using via API. I assume, but just kind of want to confirm that the agentic kind of functionality you introduced here at the show makes creating that integration a lot easier.
Yes,
for the
it does.
MSP.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's insane to see how far we've come so fast. As long as you know how to prompt, and we have classes to teach you if you don't know, you could get it to do anything. You could get it to look for problems, look for repetitive things. So we're going to be in a better position with the MSPs, with automation as service, where they're going to be more consultative when they go into their customers.
And so is that that sort of automated integration, automated automation kind of process that you've got in the tool or coming very soon, is that sort of the unlock that gets you past 17% of, I mean, Aaron was talking about bottlenecks. What was the bottleneck in the past? The skill set you needed to have to go into an end user and do that automation for them. The fact that the tool can build whatever it is I kind of envision now, is that what you guys think get you way beyond 17%?
I think so, because what it does is it breaks down the barriers of people thinking that they don't have the skill set, they don't have the time, all these things. So we're taking a lot of those objections away. I mean, this is the first company, Rich, that I've worked at that when people come in and leave, they apologize. So they said, we just, sorry, we didn't have the right resources. We didn't take the time. We didn't, it's not like this is the worst tool I've ever had. And, I can't believe it. It's more of like, hey, we kind of know where we missed the mark ourselves. We just couldn't put enough time into it. So I think taking that fear away. The other thing is that, like everybody else, depending on where you are, if you've been working at an MSP for 20 or 30 years and now you have to kind of learn something new that may be a bridge too far, you may look at it and say, like, I really don't want to do that now. Whereas I think now you take away some of those objections. Our goal is to make sure we enable everyone to know what they need to do, like be successful in the platform and being able to, to show them how easy it's going to be.
So it's actually a really interesting story you just told there, that far and away, easily the biggest pain point that your partners had was just the resources and the skills to it's an astonishing thing when people who drop the tool are apologizing to you. It's us, it's not you. So you've addressed that head on with the new version of the tool here right now. Is there another sort of pain point beyond that you've heard about, that you're thinking about, that you hope to be able to address as well?
I think it's just going to be working and collaborating with them to make sure that they don't miss out on the opportunities in front of them. Like, what should they automate? So one of the things that we did build out is a PSA analyzer tool. So that tool will actually go in, it'll look at all your tickets in your PSA, and we'll tell you about opportunities that you have to actually optimize that. So they could go and basically now and say, you need to go do this. Here's something that you could use. Here's an automation that you could use that actually could reduce your tickets by 35% if you just run this. And then we also have it connected to our app builder platform, and we built out a automation roadmap. So it'll actually be able to tell them, hey, based on what we've seen here, here's probably the things that you need to focus on. And then we work together with them to figure out how we knock those out based on importance.
You may have begun answering this question already, but the press release you guys issued about the news at the show today was talking about how this is a major milestone on your AI-centered roadmap, which of course raises the question, what else is on the AI-centered roadmap that you can talk about?
Well, you'll have to talk to Aaron about that one, I think. He's it's pretty incredible because he's just always seems to be thinking about the next thing. And so like the whole agent bit that he went over, he's just worked on that in the last couple of weeks. So most of us didn't even know he was going to present that.
Huh.
So there's always the next thing, and he's always looking at that. And I think part of it is that he makes himself pretty available to talk to partners. So he is part of the community. He's not one level up for the community. He's, if you can see how people are coming up, talking to him, shaking his hand. So I think he does a good job of keeping on the pulse of where technology is, but also what the community needs.
That was kind of a interesting story too, how quickly this came together, and it's something I'm seeing in a number of different vendors. Basically, I mean, you guys are using the ability of AI to accelerate development and democratize development for MSP, but you're taking advantage of that internally as well. I keep encountering vendors who are moving down the roadmap much faster than was possible before. When their professional developers are using the AI coding capabilities.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, and that's something that I think some people initially go kicking and screaming that like it's not a real thing, but then once they embrace it, they realize how much more efficient they are. I think this is one of the times where it's not going to be good enough to just market your way out of AI. And you kind of know what I'm talking about. I think you've been doing this long enough where we're famous for coming out with certain terms, right? I'll use an old one so no one gets offended, but something like bring your own device. Everybody did something on it. Didn't matter what you did, what your product was. I think they use an example of, what's the sneaker brand? I think Allbirds. Somebody was saying today how they are AI driven, right? So, I mean, if nothing else, for us in tech, you'll be like, hey, well, what does that even mean? Right? It's my sneakers, but it's just everybody's using it, but I don't think you're going to see, our community's not going to let us get away with just marketing speak. You have to be able to deliver on it.
So Charlie, like I said, obviously a very busy few days for you here at the show. So I very much appreciate you taking some time out. For folks who want to get in touch with you, follow up on something you said, want to learn more about Rewst and the stuff that you announced here at the show, where should they go?
Yeah, just connect with me on LinkedIn, or you could reach me at charlie@rewst.io. And definitely go out, connect on our LinkedIn page, and you'll see all the updates from Rewst this week. If you want to sign up for the early access for the next gen platform, be more than happy to provide you with that.
All right. So. Well, Charlie, once again, thank you for joining us here. Folks, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back on the other side, I will be rejoined by Eric. We'll share some thoughts about this conversation with Charlie and some of what Rewst has been announcing here at Rewst Flow. It's all coming your way in just a bit, so stick around. We'll be right back. And welcome back, part 3 of this episode of the MSP Chat podcast. One last thank you to Charlie Tomeo for joining us at the show, getting into all of their news here from the show with folks in our audience. I told you earlier on in the show we would kind of come back to the feel the burn concept there a little bit, Eric. You kind of heard where that came up, because in terms of RPA having a long-term and essentially permanent role to play in the automation story as a complement as opposed to being replaced by AI, one of the things that it can do is control token consumption, right? It can be the set of rules and boundaries and so on that are constraining what the agents do and what they spend doing that. So that is a role that the folks at Rewst envision for RPA going forward. And it was interesting, one of the challenges that MSPs and their customers are going to have to deal with, and that you're already seeing kind of people deal with things like OpenClaw, is the power of agentic AI is enormous and the potential is enormous, but obviously, because this is all sort of autonomous, there are a lot of things that can go wrong as well. And we've talked about various ways the technology industry is looking to compensate for that. And Rewst style automation, RPA as a tool in the toolkit for that, in terms of giving an agent a set of capabilities, things that is permitted to do, things that is explicitly forbidden to do, some structure, as Charlie put it, around how they go about what they are doing. That's actually going to be something that I think is very useful, both for MSPs and for their customers, as MSPs deliver automation as a service. One last thing, I believe this came up quickly in the interview there. I had a chance to talk about it a little bit more with Charlie off the air after we finished recording this interview. They've spent some time at Rewst, as you would imagine, envisioning this new version of the system that they unveiled here at the show. And there was a lot of work in terms of validating their concepts with MSPs and speccing everything out. They got to a point, Eric, where they were ready to actually go from here's what we want to do to doing it, actually doing the coding, the development a few weeks ago. And thanks to the power of AI coding tools, they were actually able to cover that ground very, very quickly. They really just finished that development process and got to a point where they were comfortable rolling it out to MSPs, I imagine, within a matter of days from now. But it is yet another illustration of how fast you can move, whether you're a professional developer or just somebody vibe coding with Claude or vibe coding and automation now with Rewst. It's remarkable how fast you can move.
Yeah, I'm learning that every single week, week over week over week, and I'm feeling the burn, as I feed more tokens to try to get a project done, because it's required now. It's like, to me, internet is required for us to do what we do, and I'm now seeing AI is required for me personally to deliver at a level that I could never achieve before, not just in terms of total output, but just making sure, double checking, triple checking, assessing, finding data sources and things like that. It's pretty amazing where I now can say I don't want to do what I do without AI. It just going back to the old way of doing things. It's just unacceptable for me in my workload. I mean, what are your thoughts, Rich?
Well, you're reminding me. We were both at PAX 8 Beyond very recently, and you're reminding me of an interview I did there with Nick Hetty, their president and chief commercial officer, and he was talking about someone on the team at PAX 8 who I shall not name, who had told Nick basically, I've got my own way of doing things. I don't want AI doing these things for me. And Nick is a pretty aggressive user of AI in his work, and he told this guy, look, you do what you want, but you will not be able to keep up with me and what I need from you if you are doing everything the way you've been doing it in the past. Nick is moving so much faster that he's kind of warning people at PAX 8 right now. If you want to keep pace with how I do business, the speed at which I do business and the speed at which PAX 8 increasingly does business, you're going to have to get on the AI train too. And the ending of that story basically is the person he was talking to said, yep, you're right, and is now, agent pilled and doing all sorts of things with AI too, and I'm sure would never go back. And that leads us to, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's a great story that MSPs can share with their clients to say, hey, are you ready? I mean, you want to move at speed and benefit from all these things? Then we've got to do an assessment. We've got to get your users up, trained up. We've got to, identify what your 3 biggest constraints are. How can we apply AI? I mean, this is an accelerant, and when you get a whole team behind it, it's pretty addictive, and having these vibe coding, workshops for clients and things like that. Rewst is definitely positioning its focus around helping MSPs get there and then also help their customers get there. I I would hate to be an MSP here in the next 6 or 12 or 18 months that isn't moving toward AI and trying to be one of those AI frontier firms or leading with AI because you've got to keep up and you've got to distinguish yourself. If you're not keeping up with what your clients' demands are, they're going to find somebody who can.
Yeah, you don't have to be at the bleeding edge, but you do really need to be keeping up for any number of reasons that we've talked about on the show. Yeah, you you need to be moving forward as fast as is safe for you to do right now. And folks, that leaves us with time for just one last thing, and it comes to us from down under. Now, Eric, you and I forget exactly when this came up, but we were talking once upon a time about how loud it gets at Lumen Field, where the Seattle Seahawks, my hometown team, play. And you'll if you've got an Apple Watch, you'll sometimes get this alert that tells you it's really loud out there right now. And it was, I was at the conference championship game not all that long ago, and it was going off, pretty steadily. And it was something like there was like a steady 105 kind of decibels, and it was loud. Let me tell you, the friend I was with had earplugs. It was loud there. 105 isn't really loud. 122.4 is crazy loud, and that is the new Guinness Book of World Records record for the loudest human being. 58-year-old Canberra, Australia, professional air conditioner cleaner. Joseph McGrail Beta now holds the Guinness Book of World Records for loudest human. He yelled the word "now" at 122.4 decibels. And the only context I can put that into for you, Eric, is that according to this article I'm reading this from here, 122.4 is comparable to, you're walking on the street somewhere and an ambulance goes by, and right when it goes by you, it is so loud, fingers in the ear, you cringe, it hurts. That's approximately 122.4. Imagine a person that loud. I kind of can't, but apparently this person exists in Australia.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, a couple of other comparisons was, a jet aircraft taking off. Can you imagine being next to a jet engine as the thing? I mean, yeah, painful. How did this person discover this, secret power that they have? And how would you ever use it in day-to-day life? I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't get used too often around the house. That would get old in a hurry. But it is a good question. How do you learn you have this talent, and how do you hone it exactly, and where, so that nobody yells at you? Well, folks, that is all the time we've got for you this week on this episode of the MSP Chat Podcast. We thank you very much for joining us. We're going to be back in 1 week's time with another episode for you. Until then, I will remind you, as I always do, this is both a video and an audio podcast, which means that if you're listening to us right now, but you'd like to check us out on video, you can go to YouTube, look up MSP Chat. If you're watching us, but you're into audio podcasts, you can go to Spotify, Apple, Google, you name it, pretty much anywhere you get audio podcasts. Look MSP Chat up there as well. And wherever it is you find us, please subscribe, rate, review. It's going to help other people find and enjoy the show just like you do. This show is produced by the great Riley Simpson, part of the team with us here at Channel Mastered, where we help vendors build, grow, optimize thriving MSP channels. You can learn all about the many, many ways we do that at our website, which is www.channelmastered.com. Channel Mastered has a sister business called MSP Mastered. That's Eric and his team working with MSPs to help them grow and optimize their managed services practice. You can learn more about that at www.mspmastered.com. So that's all the time we've got for you. We'll be back in a week. Until then, folks, thanks for joining us. And please remember, as we so very much want you to, that you can't spell channel without MSP.